council, and she's just such a breath of fresh air. Yes, so fantastic. Oh, goodness, yes. I mean, she's the best in the business, my word. Oh, gosh. Yes, sorry, my biscuits is just meowing off a storm. Give me a moment, I'm just going to get her all sorted before we start. Okay, is that right? Okay, great, I'll see you soon, Liz. Your biscuits, stop all that meowing.
So we'll check them all soon later. How are we going? Well, keep amongst yourselves. We are at this extraordinary meeting of serious business. Anyone need a pen? You definitely need a pen. You can have a lot of ideas to write down. Right. All right, everybody. Well, welcome to this extraordinary meeting about housing, Auckland, and the future of our city. Woo! It is serious stuff. Auckland house prices have gone up 17% in 1 year.
Not that they were low to begin with.
Homeowners are doing okay
On paper.
but many people are seriously struggling.
Child poverty stats are increasing.
Overcrowding leads to more diseases,
And arguments, because sharing a bathroom is a nightmare.
and moving around a lot makes it hard to do well at school.
Or make friends.
And even if you're doing pretty well, getting on the ladder can be hard. Small apartments are cheap,
But banks are requiring a 50% deposit to lend.
and everybody's got an opinion about what the problem is and how to tackle it. So we thought we'd begin this meeting by just getting some of those opinions out in the open, clearing the air. So what we're going to do is divide the council in half. So you're going to be with me on my team.
And you guys are going to be with me on the winning side.
Not without that, though. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit of back and forth going with some phrases that people always bring up when the housing debate is raised, okay? So on my side, our first phrase is going to be, in my day, we worked hard and saved for a house. Okay, so we're going to say it all together, okay? Ready? So 3, 2, 1. In my day, we worked hard and saved for a house.
Well, that was pretty good, but I think we can do better, alright? So our response is going to be, your house earns more than you. Okay? Are we all ready? Right, 3, 2, 1. Your house earns more than you.
We've got a response, don't worry. There are plenty of cheaper houses further out. Right. Okay, ready team? 3, 2, 1.
There are plenty of cheaper houses further out. But our response is going to be, but I don't want to live in, where's something really far out that would make it really hard to access the city? Brewery, absolutely, right. Sorry if anyone came from Brewery, but for the sake of the activity, so we're going to say, but I don't want to live in Brewery, okay? Ready? 3, 2, 1. But I don't want to live in Brewery.
Right then. Well, let's just get a bit of this back and forth going. So let's string it all together now, team. So our first phrase. Are we ready? 3, 2, 1.
In my day, we worked hard and saved for a house. Your house earns more than you. There are plenty of cheaper houses further out. But I don't want to live in Brewery.
Okay, Bonham. Right. Well, I think we're all engaged, ready to make some decisions together.
I don't know, Liz. It seems a little bit like we've kind of divided everybody now. But I'm sure we have lots of things in common.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like people need homes. Snap your fingers if you think nobody should be homeless. And we should consider future generations. Right? Snap your feet for future generations. How about saving the planet? Clap your hands.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we have lots of common ground.
Yeah, we can work together. We have to. There's so much at stake and so little time.
Well, now it is time to introduce the most important person person that you've never heard of. She is your relationship manager today and every day, making sure the wheels of the council run smoothly. She's been supporting elected officials behind the scenes for 15 years and has never been known to lose her cool. Please welcome Kelly Kim!
I love this city. You have met Joe and Liz, our democracy advisors. Some side notes, so Joe has a master's in English and philosophy, and she once hula hooped for 17 straight hours to raise money for Youth Line. And Liz represented New Zealand in gymnastics in the last Olympics. Like, oh, she has a major in English, bachelor's in English, and she throws the best vegan dinner parties. And I think the vegans in the house. All right, so the three of us here, relationship managers and democracy advisors, we're here to help you get through the next hour because this is your first council board meeting as elected officials. And we have some serious business to take care of. Let me tell you how this is going to play out. So we have a national policy statement. What this means is that basically the city has to change. In a minute, we'll have a workshop with our senior strategist, Sue. And you can ask questions at the workshop. She'll explain the national policy statement. And then we'll have a meeting to decide on what policy amendments we want to carry forward. Now, every policy decision has an impact. And every failure to make a decision or make a decision in time also has an impact. The leaky buildings crisis, for example, that came from a building deregulation, and it's estimated to cost $47 billion to sort that out. And rising, thank you. So, we need to think really carefully. Our meeting will also be interrupted occasionally by events of the day, such as
Bangladesh is facing catastrophic effects after monsoons have left almost a quarter of the country underwater. Nearly 1.3 million homes were damaged, hundreds of thousands of people were marooned, and hundreds have died. With future climate change, flooding in Bangladesh is predicted to become more extreme due to cyclonic storm surges and rising sea levels. Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister of Bangladesh, called sea level rise a planetary emergency, and one of which Bangladesh will bear the brunt.
So some of them are bad, and some of them are inspiring.
Costa Rica is the first tropical country to have stopped and subsequently reversed deforestation. Can the rest of the world follow its lead? In the 1940s, 75% of Costa Rica was cloaked in lush rainforests. Then the loggers arrived, chainsaws in hand, and cleared the land to grow crops and raise livestock. In the 1970s and 1980s, Costa Rica had one of the highest deforestation rates in Latin America. But the country has managed to turn that around in a relatively short period of time. Today, almost 60% of the land is once again forest.
Wow. That's cool. So action or inaction, pay attention or bury your head in the sand, we're all complicit. Now, a lot of people don't realise what we do here at Council. Firstly, we need to meet our four well-being.
The four well-beings are social, economic, cultural, and environmental well-being.
Yeah. And then we also need to deliver core council services, such as
water supply, roadways and cycleways, urban planning, libraries, public transport, waste removal, citizens' rights bureau, parks, events, plant trees, health and home community centres, water areas, schools.
Far out, that's a lot. That is amazing. Well done, team. And we also need to meet our targets to mitigate climate change. So everything we do needs to be seen through a climate change lens. And we have less than 1 hour to get it all right. Okay, so you have your standing orders in front of you. These are the rules of engagement, if you like. So it's okay to have a drink at the bar, but please don't be disorderly within the meeting. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand and Liza interim chair will call upon you to speak. Now I'm going to try and hear as many voices in the room as possible. So you may only get a chance to speak once and maybe not for very long. Now if things get a little out of hand, I'm going to clap like this. But don't worry, you will get a chance to vote. Yes, Liz.
And propose amendments.
Yes, and propose amendments. That's excellent. Okay. So at the meeting, you'll hear some deputations from experts.
That's true, like they're real experts.
And so deputation is it's a presentation. Then you'll hear from some members of the community in our public forum. We will have a debate, make some policy amendments, and then we vote. Excellent. But don't worry, we'll help you get through this. I know this is your first council meeting. Whatever happens, a decision needs to be made today, within the hour.
And after the hour's up, we'll be taking what we hear from you guys and your submissions to a real Auckland Council meeting, like a real one.
All right, I think we're ready to begin the workshop. Liz, is Sue ready? Is she in the audience?
Yes, I think we're still on Zoom. Yes,
On
yes,
Zoom.
yes.
On Zoom. This is how we do this. Okay.
Hi there. Hi everyone. Hi, Sue, and I'm a strategist at Auckland Council.
Hi.
First of all, congratulations on making it through elections and coming on the board. We're so excited to have you with us. So today I'm going to talk through the National Policy Statement. If you have any questions, do ask. So the National Policy Statement on Urban Development was announced by the government in mid-2020.
That's true.
All councils must obey it and change their plans accordingly. It aligns with the urban growth agenda, which encourages and anticipates both economic and population growth. So there are 5 main aspects to this policy. Number 1, councils must enable the market to provide homes that are needed. They must find out what these needs are. 2, they must enable buildings up to 6 stories in town centres and walking distance to city centres and rapid transport hubs. Now, buildings in city centres can be as tall as they like. Number 3, councils must enable growth on the edge of cities, and this means providing utilities and infrastructure to greenfield sites. Number 4, councils can no longer insist that developments have car parks. And finally, number 5, the intention is to create a well-functioning urban form. So at a minimum, that means diversity of buildings at different prices. Heritage and other qualities cannot prevent development in an area. So that some people have a taste for a certain style of housing shouldn't prevent other landowners from being bold and doing things differently. Right, so the plan is to make it easier for developers to build. We need more homes.
We need more affordable homes.
We need more homes. We are anticipating growth. There is some overlap with the Auckland Unitary Plan.
Does everybody know what the Auckland Unity Plan is? So this is the plan that tells us where we can build, how we can build it, and how high we can build. And council needs to pay for infrastructure and amenities like water to community centres. We need to have a thriving city, so everything that makes a city livable. So then we come to the question of what actually defines a well-functioning urban. And this is where we need to come. Are there any questions?
Yeah. Yes.
Did we lose Sue?
I think we did, but we can go to answering your question.
Okay, thanks, Liz. Yes.
I'm wondering if we can challenge the National Policy Statement because I'm concerned about needing to provide amenities, etc. for greenfields. I'm concerned about the greenfields of Pukekohe and the fact that we might not have enough salary and potatoes if we pay it all over with buildings.
I'm going to direct it to Liz.
This is really wonderful, and I think this hits on what we're trying to achieve here during this meeting is looking at the national policy statement and figuring out what amendments we can make so that we can make this policy statement work for us. So I think this is such a good point. Does it do that?
No, I'm so relieved that you answered that. Any other questions? David from this side of the room.
I think something that's been playing on my mind at least is about this walking distance. You know, what does that mean? Surely walking distance is different for different people, ages, abilities.
Yeah. Okay, so let's think about this. If you were living in an apartment in town, you went shopping, you've got your grocery bags, you've stepped off the bus, how long a time would you like to walk home? So, is it like 5 minutes? Does that sound reasonable? 5 minutes? Does anybody else think otherwise?
15 max.
15 maximum. Yep, load up with groceries. 15, 5, sorry?
10.
10
In the middle.
is nice in the middle. Anybody else?
Is this a week's groceries or a day?
Yeah, that's a really good point. How about saying 3.5 days worth of groceries? Somewhere in the middle? I think maybe we'll select 10 as a good gauge. Joe, would you come over here, please? Sorry, let's check this out. Okay, let's do a little. This is a little step because Auckland's quite hilly. So, Joe, it's actually quite a good thing by the way to have disabled your work and didn't get a chance to bring this home because now I've got some shopping bags for you. You can have one in each hand. Let's just run this. Let's just run this out. Let's see if we can get you stand up and down the step because Auckland's quite hilly with your grocery bags in your hand. We'll just put you on a timer for 10 minutes.
Did you say 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Did you say 10 minutes?
Yeah. If we had 5, if we had 15, if we had 10. This is kind of in the middle.
Could be right. It's stretch.
I feel good. Yeah. How old are you, Joe?
104.
Okay. Yeah, I think I actually kind of think that 10 minutes in my own head, I wouldn't want to walk more than 5. We'll just see how Joe goes when 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Okay. All right. And yes, absolutely, age is a factor. So,
Is it dark?
is it dark?
Is it raining?
Right now it is dark, but it is not raining as yet. Yeah. And all of those things are factors, so they're really good points.
Has Joe had recent wheelchair? Has Joe had recent police injury?
I'm sorry, I'm finding it hard to say. What if she was in a wheelchair? Yeah, very, very tricky. Yep.
What if she had a cramp?
And yeah,
Oh, God.
yeah. And I'm working at wheelchairs and prams, we could actually look things on the back. And sorry, yes.
What if she had an Achilles injury?
Yeah, yes, I feel your pain. Yes. Yeah, you feel insane.
Hello, I think they want to enjoy it.
Thank you, yes.
I feel like a lot of those questions speak to like the sorts of services that council needs to be providing as well, and also how attentive those services are to individual needs rather than just setting a broad policy that's meant to fit everyone when in reality that's not how life works.
Absolutely, and as council board members, we need to try and take all the points of view to make it work for everyone. That is so fantastic, and this is one question out of the way. Now we come to the question of a well-functioning urban form, and you're going to love this. I'm going to get to your neighbour, please, and talk about what you want to see in your city, because all the things that you're saying right now are so valuable and important. So we'll give you 1 minute to talk to your neighbour and think about what makes a well-functioning urban form. What do you want to see in your city? Time starting now. Is this around making our cities safer for
Inclusive and
guys?
safe.
Thank you. The rainbow communities. Okay. Thank you, guys. That is awesome. I love it. Just one word. Yes.
A drinking fountain every 200 metres.
Yes. Word. Excellent. A drinking fountain every 200 metres. I am noticing the emphasis on guys. Triple exclamation mark. Yes.
For over 80s.
Yeah.
A seat for over 80s next to the drinking fountain. Every 200 metres. I love that. That is really good. I can see another hand in the back middle. Yes.
Sense of community.
Wow! This is the best board I've ever worked with. A sense of community. That's amazing. Yes, over here.
Safe, fully formed bike paths.
Safe, fully formed bike paths. There is nothing like a little ditch in the middle of your bike. Right, that is awesome. Okay, yes, over here.
Yeah, just beyond that or inclusive of that, just like well-functioning public transport.
Public transport, I hear ya. Yes, sorry, yes. And maybe, and we'll have toilets, and maybe a little app to tell you where those toilets are. Yeah. So we can see. Sorry? Oh, not everyone uses cell phones. We will have to workshop that, how we would enable that.
Free internet everywhere.
Okay, wait 1 second. Okay, 1 second. No hand up, I'm going to go here.
Convenience businesses.
Convenience
for local
businesses.
people who live. Convenience businesses. Those of us who live close to Ponsonby Road are gradually being denied on convenience businesses.
Would you be able to explain? So it's like dairies, kind of like dairies and convenience businesses.
Not dairy price.
Okay. No, yes.
What?
Not dairy prices. Oh, I love this. Okay. Yes. No, wait. We hang on
At the back. At the back, there's someone with a hand up.
Yes. Hello. I think they're pointing at you, the person turning around right now. Did you have a question? Did you
Person
have
at the table. Oh, at the table.
Public spaces, shared public spaces that can be used by groups or individuals to bring communities together, speaking to your point.
Oh, I love this. You're just like bouncing off each other. Yes.
They're all going to be sold off.
Building on what my colleague said, a variety of uses and amenities in every neighbourhood.
A variety of uses and amenities in every neighbourhood. Fantastic. Yes.
Better or more recycling and rubbish bins in some of the neighbourhoods.
All recycling Russians and recycling in some neighbourhoods. And yes. Variety of uses. Rubbish bins in neighbourhoods. A variety of rubbish bins in neighbourhoods and rubbish bins and recycling in neighbourhoods. And one last one. That's you.
See?
Yes.
Community gardens.
Oh! Community gardens! Oh, I love it! Joe? Hi, Joe. How are you doing? You're 3/4 of the way there. It's tough. You look a bit tough, so why don't we stop it? Maybe we should scale it back down to the original one, which was 5 minutes. Yeah.
I'll try it this way.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let's put that walking distance of 5 minutes. That is absolutely brilliant. Okay.
Right, so we're using these points as a launching off pad for making our final decision about altering this national system, how we can address it.
Okay. I think we might be ready for our meeting. Okay. Before we begin, I need to remind you of the rule of predetermination. It's a really good idea to keep your minds open to other people's points of view. We are going to hear some amazing speakers now. We will start off with some deputations, and then we will hear from the speakers in our public forum. So I believe, let me start with the cut here first. It's fun, I understand.
We started our advocacy group about 5 years ago, and it really concentrated on the idea of addressing the needs for women and children in our most vulnerable in our cities. Because cities historically have been designed by and for men, and that's really some really problematic decisions and really problematic infrastructure that doesn't benefit women in the same way that that benefits people who are able-bodied, typically Housdale. I'm sure that this room's familiar with it. But so today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about something in the EPS that we want to potentially change as a housing model issue. We are advocating for more inclusionary zoning for housing around schools at medium density, and this looks like more inclusionary housing, which offers more affordable housing, say single mums, solo parents, around 800 metres around schools in particular. So this would create a safe walking, safe cycling environment for children to get to school, especially after what happened to the girl in the East Auckland school. I think that's just a really timely point to mention. So last week a girl was struck down by a car outside her school, and so we know that this is a really critical issue and needs addressing now. New Zealand is one of the highest child fertility rates as a result of road trauma in the OECD. A massive 56% of children are driven to school, and this has actually nearly doubled since 1990. And it's a feminist issue because it's women that are still mostly doing the drop-off and the pick-up, which is really adding to that heavy congestion on our roads. We will be aware of what's happening from 8:30 each morning. It's women that are mostly in those cars, and it's not our fault, it's the system's fault. And it's been estimated that to get New Zealand back to the 1987 levels of walking and cycling, which were really high, we can remove 100,000 cars from the road each morning. It's good for women, it's good for all parents, it's good for children, and it's good for the planet. And we also know that 96% of children, I don't know what happened to the other 4% of children, but they want to get to school on their own stand. They want to get a cycle, they want to get a scoot. And so I'll leave you on this, one of our solutions, which is the last thought, that council's going to need to make this change under the unitary plan. That costs will fall on developers, but the council is in a position to subsidise, say, those developers, and the way that they can subsidise them is by subsidising the lifts that are in those medium density apartments. Lifts are quite an expensive thing. They tend to put developers off developing medium density housing. But think of the cost of building housing out into the edges of school, building all new pipes and the new roads that you need. Actually doing something like subsidising elevators to incentivise developers to build more medium density housing is a really neat solution to that problem. So thank you for listening.
Questions? Yes.
Thanks for your presentation, Emma. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about how you arrived at the 800 metre figure.
Yeah, after watching Joe stepping on that block, it can be, it should probably be reduced actually. The 800 metre figure is just like an international standard. But what we should be doing is actually asking communities and future communities what their desirable movement speed is and walking length is. If we are increasing, if we say we're putting protected infrastructure and cycling to that 800 metres is a very cyclable distance for a lot of children and a very scootable distance. It's not just about walking, it's also about those micro walks, it's about mobility that could be filling in those gaps as well. But yeah, the 800 metres is just a really international standard, and I think that's probably something we can change.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, so you mentioned the role of developers in changing these spaces. Do you see the profit motive behind housing development as an issue between us and making this a reality? Or do you think that the current role that property developers play is going to be conducive to the sorts of major changes we need to make this happen?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I think that they, the system we have, they need an incentive specifically. And it's a shame that it's that way, but I think they're incentivised at the moment to build that medium density housing at an affordable price point for, say, single mothers or people in low income situations. So we need to be working on clever little solutions, like things like incentivising, lifts is such a basic thing that we do to help get it over the line.
Got time for one last question?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Emma, let us make Fantastic. So the next deputation is from Alex Bonham, PhD student. Thank you, Alex. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So Emma's already talked about the value of focusing on women and girls in the city and how it can have a good impact on children's well-being and also women and also the planet and everybody, really. But I've got a little bit of insights on what that might look like and what children want, which is very consistent around the world. Children would like to have access to a variety of play spaces, including nature spaces, where they can be with their peers. They value having independent mobility, or really they value having mobility. They don't like traffic, dirt, rubbish, or scary people. Independent mobility, or even mobility, gives you a sense of place. It helps you connect to your neighbours. It's better for physical and mental well-being. And it also means your mother is left off the hook carrying you everywhere. I did a seminar last year with some young girls, and it was very clear that the 8-year-old girl who lived right next door to Rocket Park had huge amounts of independent mobility, while the 14-year-old who lived in an outer suburb did not, because she could not walk to where she wanted to be. So she spent most of her time in the mall, because that was a safe place where her mother could do something while waiting to ferry her back home again. And it really restricted what she could do. Other cities have become really, really child-friendly. In Vancouver, they have guidelines for family housing in high-density developments. They chose the 400 metres, close to the school. And they also had guidelines for how houses were designed so that you could look out of your kitchen window and see your children playing in a shared outdoor space, protected from traffic. So even though you're in an apartment building, your kids can still have flow out into the garden. And I think when we think about the value of a house for families, it's having that flow out into the garden. I question the point of a house that just has a driveway and cars outside and nothing else, except another house with driveways outside and miles away from anywhere that children can play. So the 15-minute neighbourhood could be part of the answer, and that is where you have amenities, schools, shops, parks within a 15-minute walk. In that way, you don't need a car, so there's less space for cars, which slows down traffic in the neighbourhood. And that means that you can allow your children to go outside and play, because it is that traffic that is the bigger danger rather than the stranger danger. And if, with a national policy statement, we could have some incentives for family-appropriate housing, perhaps using those Vancouver guidelines close to schools, then that means that we'll have family housing close to the centre that is affordable, rather than pushing families to the very edge, isolating both mothers and children. Or parents and children, I should say.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes.
When you talk about family home, is that based on a particular type of home, or is that spaces to like multi-generational families that live in a family home, or single parents?
That's a really, really good question. We absolutely need a diversity of housing, because different people have different sorts of whānau. And but I think that we could have a diversity of housing, but still have it being really family friendly. And then I think people might identify themselves as being family oriented, which will involve sometimes hearing crying babies. So acoustics are good, so that they can be in this area. Not all housing would be for families, but if there was enough family appropriate housing, then I think that would be
Any other questions? Yes.
Just talking to your just kind of how the family garden is, how does that sort of jive with medium density housing? Do you see the buildings as being ones with like gardens shared, or how does the home garden meet up with the needs of like a growing increasing population?
That's such a good question, and I think courtyard housing is part of the answer. So, I mean, if you've got a development like this, with the garden in the middle, then the kids can play in there and they can play with each other. It is so much more fun to play with other kids than just playing by yourself on your own. So having a shared garden, this is in Vienna, it is amazing. They have lots of courtyard housing since the 30s. And inside these big developments, you have got fruits, trees, you've got community gardens, you've got the place for the barbecue, the place to hang out, and you've got the playground as well. And you've got about 4 or 5-story housing on the outside, loads of kids of different ages who can then meet in the middle and play with each other. And I think Freeman's Bay is the closest we've got to that. And it's some of the most popular housing. But now, there's hardly any children there because families can barely afford to live there. But it was designed for families, and it was created by the state in the 1970s. And I think the state should step up and create some more really good family housing with the garden.
Thank you, Alex. I've got one more question. Yes.
Kia ora, I was wondering if you've done a gender analysis, maybe tell us a little bit about how different boys and girls use play areas and how we can encourage more participation by girls in play areas so that they've got a lower rate than boys.
That is a super question. Vienna's gone down that track into gender mainstreaming and put in loads of different sorts of activities for girls. We found the girls really like climbing and dangling off monkey bars seems to be a thing that they really like, and also basket seats. But I think that when we do our consultations, we absolutely have to make sure that we nut down what it is that girls like. And if you're really interested, have a look at the work of Jacqueline Collins, because she is doing Tetris research in that area.
Okay, Jacqueline Collins, not Jackie Collins, the fiction writer. Jacqueline Collins.
It's a whole different sort of women's pleasure there.
Thank you so much, Alex. That is amazing. Give me a lot to think about. What I'd like to do right now is just do a little bit of a role play, because I love role play. These things that you've got here, this is how you vote. So, what we would normally do in a council meeting is that somebody would make an amendment, and then somebody would second it, and then we get to vote. So, who I would like, let's have a look at the amendments that we well, I think there was one on community gardens. Okay, who would like to propose that we have community gardens in our city? Yes, okay. So if you could please, I propose that we have community gardens in our city.
I propose that we have community gardens in our city.
Good job. All right. And who would like to second that? Okay, so you just go second. Fantastic. All right. And then normally what would happen is we'd bounce back to this person. They would have 30 seconds to speak on why she wants community gardens in our city. But we won't put you on the spot right now. Not prepared, sorry. But we would then vote. So how the voting works is that you have these little squares. If you agree with community gardens in our city, show me the green side with a tick. If you disagree, then you would show me the red side with a cross. And how the voting's going to go is I'll say, Tahi Roa Toru, vote! And then you would show me. Okay? So let's just practice that. So for community gardens in our city, Tahi Roa Toru, vote! Wow, look at that! There's a lot of greenies in the audience. Okay, fantastic. And then I would say, and that has been carried, which means that we like it, we're going to leave it up there, we're pushing it through.
The state of Western Australia is facing an unprecedented situation as it battles a raging wildfire whilst millions of residents are under coronavirus lockdown. Fires have ravaged over 9,000 hectares, 22,200 acres of farmland across eastern Perth.
So there were wildfires in Australia?
Yeah, 56 homes destroyed northeast of Perth.
Last year?
No, this year.
Do you guys remember that red sky?
Okay, so we need to get back to this. So we've given you a lot to think about. Still on the topic of what is a well-functioning urban form. We would love you to write down some of your ideas, thoughts about what you want to see in your city. As I said before, we're going to take these to council for them. So you have pens and papers with you, and while you're writing, we'll have some of our voices from the public forum.
I would want to hear Edward
I do not want to go there. I don't want to be there right now. I'd rather stay here.
Oh, it's EV charging ports.
And stop spending so much money.
Oh, and community spaces, community facility plans, parking,
That's one example. Another example is when we have a habit of digging up the road multiple times. So, dig up the water,
Can we just have one day a week where there's no roadworks and have Sunday? People live here.
Get it done.
a lot of our new spaces.
Enable community facilities, wheelchair accessible.
If I say to you that the government decisions dependent on the votes of minority view, nothing would ever get done. You have to move for technological change. You wouldn't have the economy without the automobile business. Now that is literally true.
There needs to be a public
I love the houses in what we use to make the space. You look for a little, I think we can like that. Yeah, but I wouldn't mind. Still, here's a train track.
places where to be honest, it's dangerous to cycle.
I would have loved to like, I want to be Jesus what's going on.
We have
Or bus.
space for them. Because if they live somewhere, there's space, then it can be hard to
I bloody hate cycle lanes. At least the parking hour moving in.
housing front. All that's a very small city.
Why did you use with the LED buildings?
Because the expectation allows investment in infrastructure. Because the more people that concentrate here, the more you can do to support them. It's both the era I have in my
like
acres of land.
It's not the same kind of land. There are loads of bush, there's all green land.
It's just what you get across the city in the right place. It's not it's not ad hoc.
A ban on private cars in the heart of the city is urgently needed and long overdue.
Education, health facilities, security issues.
I know an old lady who had cancer, and she got an eviction notice. And killed her.
Also, we're trying to balance supply and demand. So what we have is much higher demand.
It's not that they aren't enough houses, it's just they don't want to afford it. We rent from a man, he owns 5 houses, one man, there are loads of houses in one day, but they're empty. So the opposite, loads of them are empty, the houses are too much.
I finished, yeah.
So unfortunately, in this country, even if somebody living mobilized at scale, and mobilized by sustainable
A lot of buildings in people, it's stupid to not invest in property. The interest rates are 1.5 and rentals are 2.5 or 2.4%. Look, the
Why have their properties been empty? Our place has changed from a vibrant community to a run-down ghetto. That community are making criminals.
It's not there's a benefit of houses to speak.
I'm the influence that should have been sales, and the families that have moved out.
It's Las Vegas, for example, they set up a generator in a year or two. Got 12 beds too.
I love living in GI. So many trees, birdsong. You can walk to the station and the shops. The south, no trees. We go back there every week. Hello, Palava. My name is Dakota Meredith. I'm from Tamaki Collective for Housing. We are asking you to build more than just houses. We are asking you to rebuild our community. We are asking you to facilitate the connection for us to each other in our neighborhood and to the land. We imagine our neighborhood with having a community center in the middle. It's a multi-use facility with doctors, support services, and community hui space at the bottom. Above that, you'll have workspaces to hotspot, and above that, apartments for affordable living. Surrounding this, we'll have community gardens. We will have community laundries, parks, play centers, leisure centers, pools, places where people who are young and old can connect. And then around that, we'll have townhouses and houses with backyards big enough to have your whole whānau around after church on Sunday for a fee. Best food. Imagine this. Neighborhood by neighborhood of people knowing names and stories of past glories. Imagine this. Children playing b-ball, laughter on the streets, and smiles to those you meet. Imagine this. The doctors down the road, and cost is not a problem when we all share the load. You've got homes for the ones, twos and the threes, homes for every type of diverse family. Imagine this. Shoulder to shoulder, planting in the soil, feasting up like royals. Greenery and gardens, homes for the tui, neighborhood chest and community hood. A place to belong, a feeling self-worth, connection to each other, connect to Mother Earth. Tamakima Koto, 1,000 lovers instead. The culture's young and old will be a multicolored thread. Imagine this. Barbecues and boilers, biryani and corned beef, dumplings on the street. Yuki Kadaka Kai, culture on a high. Everyone's ahead, dancing on the TikTok. You got the feels here on this block. You got the feels here on this block. You got the feels here on this block. Imagine this.
To stop 4 species of kaimoana from collapsing. The iwi Ngāti Pawa have been worried for years about declining inshore biodiversity on the Hauraki Gulf's most populated island, and with community support, a restriction is being imposed from this weekend. It follows a series of hui with the community and Mau Whenua about the need to restore declining numbers of scallops, mussels, crayfish and paua. The rahui will apply from the foreshore to 1 nautical mile out to sea.
Hey everyone, I'm Chloe. I am a peer support worker at the Commons Cafe up on K Road. I don't know if you guys have been there, but it's a pretty amazing space. I'm here today to endorse the housing first model. Because you need a home, but it's not the end of it. You know, most people are on the streets because of some issue with substance abuse or trauma or mental health issues, so you can't just give them keys and say, good luck. You know, you have to support the whānau. That's what we call people who are living on the street, whānau. Because, I mean, it happened to any of us. I mean, most of us are just one paycheck away from being homeless. What you really need when you're in that situation is someone to check in on you, help you through all the bureaucracy stuff. Need that. Wish I could introduce you all to my dog Bailey, but she doesn't really like crowds. She was my only support for a really long time. Got myself kicked out of the boarding house, stupid friends who wouldn't stop being rowdy, and one too many fights. Bailey and I ended up living in a tent under a bridge that flooded whenever it rained. People would tell us to move on, but I mean, where were we supposed to go? I mean, when you ask for help enough times and you don't get it, just stop asking. See my whānau going through quack withdrawal, passing out from synthetics. As a peer support worker, it's my job to just talk to them, let them know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that they can get through this. But it takes time. I mean, when I got my place, I know I was jumping for joy, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Places like Commons and programs like Housing First can change lives. That's what you can do for people if you consider the homeless perspective when you're making these decisions. I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm giving back to my community. I think I'm starting to get my whānau back. Thanks, guys.
atmosphere due to human activities not only affects the climate, it also has direct chemical effects on ocean waters. When CO2 dissolves in seawater, the water becomes more acidic. The acidity of oceans has increased by 26% since about 1850, a rate of change roughly 10 times faster than any time in the last 55 million years. Changes in marine ecosystems will have consequences for human societies, which depend on the goods and services these ecosystems provide. The implications for society would include substantial revenue declines, loss of employment and livelihoods, and other indirect economic costs.
We should get Sue back. Do you think she's? Oh, yep. Okay, she's ready.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Sue. Hi,
She's like, I can't hear you. Oh, yep, here we go. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
All right, shall I start?
Yes, please.
So the National Policy Statement is part of the government's urban growth agenda. The purpose is to require councils to plan for growth and make it easier for developers to build the homes that people need. We have to find out what people's needs are, meet our climate commitments, and define what a good urban form is.
Well, so the council defined a well-functioning urban form as gays, 3 exclamation marks, drinking fountains every 200 metres, seats for 80s plus, and I believe that was also related to every 200 metres, a sense of community linked to shared public spaces, safe, fully formed bike paths, well-functioning public transport, toilets, and for those of us with mobile phones, acts to find those toilets, convenience businesses, and a variety of uses for amenities. Oh, rubbish and recycling bins everywhere, community gardens, and a walking distance of 5 minutes. This is a great list. Okay, are there any amendments? Is there anything we haven't got up there that you'd like to see?
Yes.
Yes.
More lighting in dark places.
Excellent. More lighting in dark spaces. Thank you. And that ties in really well with the comment from the floor.
Yeah. And our woman in
Yes. Okay. Now, an amendment, it can be a new proposition or it can be a tweak to something that we've got on the board. Are there any more amendments? Yes.
Just to include playgrounds for children in the shared play.
Yeah. Nice. Great. I personally would also like to see playgrounds for animals. You know, a while ago we did actually have a council board member who quite seriously wanted trampoline paths instead of footpaths. That was quite. Okay, yes, hello.
With the rubbish and recycling, if composting was incorporated right next to the compost, people could see the circular nature of the compost as well as the food.
Yes.
So like the composting with the recycling. And the community gardens.
Oh, hey, I'm going to step in and we're going to do this like a little bit more formally now. Which I should have been doing from the beginning actually. So that is an amazing proposal. I need somebody to second that. Thank you. All right. Now, do you want to speak any more about that?
Me?
Yes.
Okay, another vision with that is that like community gardens are great, but it relies on voluntary labour. And that if there were livelihoods for urban farmers as a legitimate career option for young people who care about the planet, then
yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. Okay, we will now vote. So this is how we would normally do things. Proposal, seconder, coming back to you, and then we will vote on composting in our community gardens. So are we ready? Okay. Tahi roa toru vote.
Awesome.
It is a sea of green. Carrie, fantastic. Okay, that stays up there. That is amazing. Any other amendments? I did see yes. Free. Okay. Yeah.
It's free.
Free. Well, functioning public free transport. Excellent. There's your proposal. Excellent. I need a seconder, please. Excellent. Thank you. Fantastic. Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to that?
I don't think there's
Really like the free. Okay, we're ready to vote. Okay. Tahi roa toru vote. Okay. Interesting. That is carried. Sorry. Okay. Yes.
Coastal cities across the world are affected because of rising sea levels caused by climate change. The Indonesian capital of Jakarta is home to 10 million people, but it is also one of the fastest sinking cities in the world. If this goes unchecked, parts of the megacity could be entirely submerged by 2050, say researchers. In the last 10 years, North Jakarta has sunk 2.5 meters and is continuing to sink by as much as 25 centimeters, which is more than double the global average for coastal megacities. The speed at which Jakarta is sinking is alarming experts who believe that not enough is being done to stop the subsidence.
Okay. Look, I do see some hands over here, and I'm really sorry. I'm just realising that we are running out of time tonight. But there is another council meeting tomorrow night. Should you be available? Okay. So we are now going to decide on everything. So we're going to vote on everything that's on the board for a well-functioning urban form. Let's just articulate this. So we have gays, 3 exclamation marks, inclusive and safe for all. Drinking fountains every 200 metres, and also seats for 80s plus every 200 metres. A sense of community and shared public spaces and playgrounds for children, but also adults. Safe, fully formed bike paths, well-functioning public transport, free. Yay. Excellent. Toilets with an app, or at least some way to know where the toilets are regularly spaced out. A variety of uses for amenities, convenience businesses, rubbish and recycling bins everywhere. Community gardens with composting. A walking distance of 5 minutes, more lighting in dark areas. Okay, we now get to vote on the everything that is on the board. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Tahi roa toru vote! Oh.
Look at that.
Oh, jeez. This is great. We're going to work really harmoniously for the next year. This is amazing. Okay, so that means I get to announce that the meeting ends at 7:29 p.m. Thank you all. So Jane Jacobs, she said that it's wicked to be a victim, and that we are all complicit in what happens to us, whether we act or not. My question to you is isn't it better to act? Okay. We have 5 possible outcomes for, this is a forecast for 2050.
It's real.
Yeah. So some of these are quite exciting. One of them is a little terrifying. What would today's outcome lead to?
Kia ora, good evening. The news at 8 p.m. 30 years following Auckland Council's controversial decision in 2021 to master plan the city, it has won the world's most livable city award. The strategy to build a greater diversity of housing with more communal buildings, apartment living, Papakainga and Pasifika multi-generational housing has meant walkable neighbourhoods away from the lapping sea. Auckland's population has risen to 3.5 million, forecast to be one of the few countries to offer a pleasant climate despite climate change. City leaders saw a strategic opportunity to build economic wealth by actively trying to attract immigrant talent to help it face the challenges ahead without leaving its own people behind. Do immigrants get things done? You might say so. NZ's productivity has risen again. fueled by migrant entrepreneurship and local startups. It is being touted as the new LA. There was a minute's silence in the House as the Prime Minister announced a national day of mourning as scientists confirmed that Vanuatu is now entirely underwater. A new Members' Bill to increase mandatory language learning to at least 2 languages has come out of the biscuit tin. The Mayor of Auckland says he supports the bill. With people from 269 different racial groups living in the city, the more languages we can speak, the better. The Pacific lives on here, he says.
Okay, thank you all for coming, new board members. Thank you also to our deputies for raising your voice and for answering our questions. As promised, we will take your recommendations to council.
For real.
Yeah.
So just take those pieces of paper and collect them at the floor.
Now, if you are interested in coming to a real council meeting, they happen weekly at the Auckland